Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome back to Crafting with Curlycues. Today I have a fabulous Mint Owl Studio project to share with you all. I am going to be creating a black and white background with a pop of color as my focal piece. So I'm going to use the absolutely adorable Get Well Critters stamp set and the Love for Mom stamp set for the background. So to get started, I am going to take a piece of Neenah Solar White that's cut to the size of an A2 card base. Well, not a whole card base, but the front of an A2 card base. And then I'm going to take this really pretty Love for Mom stamp set that has all these really great floral images in it. And I am going to be inking those up and creating a background using all these different flowers. So I'm using my VersaFine Black Onyx Pigment ink today, and I'm using that just because it's nice and juicy and leaves a really crispy image that will really allow the background to pop. As you can see, my first stamp did not go so well. This flower is a really big image, so to make it stamp just a little bit easier, I grabbed a little piece of fun foam and I stuck it underneath my panel. And you can see I totally just flipped my panel over. So many of the cards that I make, if you were to peel up the pieces and look at the back, you'd see all the oopsies that I have on the other side because I'm pretty good at making a mess and then having to flip it over and start over. So I'm just going to create a really fast, simple mask using a regular Post-it note. I just made sure that part of my flower was on the sticky part of the Post-it because I'm not doing any inking over this or anything. It doesn't have to stick super, super tight. So a regular Post-it worked just fine for this. So I'm going to go ahead and use some of the smaller floral images that are in the set, and I just want them to kind of look like they're a little bit behind that big flower there. And I'm just going to kind of scatter. I wanted them to look like they're coming in kind of from that top left corner and then just like flowing down there in a lovely little floral cascade to the bottom right corner. So that's kind of the look that I'm going for. And I'm creating a little mask for the little tiny daisy. And this was actually kind of a pain because it's got all those gajillion little petals, but totally worth it because it looks adorable in the end. But you know, it sometimes takes a little bit of patience when I hate when I think something's going to be like, oh, it's just so super fast. I'll just cut this out really quick. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much more detailed than I ever could have thought. But anyway, I'm babbling. That is definitely not hard at all to cut that out. But anywho, here's this last little flower that I'm going to stamp. And again, completely random. I have no real plan here. I'm just kind of making sure I get some flowers on the paper. I'm totally cool with stamping off the edge onto my craft foam because I'll still use this craft foam later, like to pop something up, because it doesn't really matter if it's got stuff on it. It always goes behind the card detail anyway, so whatevs. So I'm using that same mask. I just flipped it up and put it on that flower up there, and that way I can use that to mask off that one at the top. So now I've kind of got all the flowers that I want. Well, I'll do a little bit more stamping, and then once I peel all the masks up, I'm kind of like eyeballing, and I'm like, I don't know. It's definitely cascading from the top to the bottom, but it was a little too like perfectly straight line for me. So this is, I left all my contemplation in the video. I slowed this video down a little bit. I've been doing like 4 times because typically I take forever to make a card, guys. I am like just like the longest card maker ever. And so I speed my videos up to 4 times, but this one went a little quicker, so I was able to just do 2 times. So if you've been wanting to watch like some slower Copic coloring or something, this is your opportunity here because I am going a little bit slower than I typically do in my videos, which should demonstrate to you how incredibly slow I am like in real life because this is still sped up at 2 times the coloring. 2 times the everything, but the coloring specifically, I am like super slow color. I don't know what my deal is. So anyway, I'm coloring this super sweet little bee from the Get Well Critters stamp set. He's got a little broken wing. Do you see how sad and like, don't you just feel sad for him? Anywho, you can see my little boo-boo there on the right. I had my pigment ink out and I stamped it on this Neenah, just not even thinking about it. And then when I started to color with my Copics, it was like, oops, that is not a Copic friendly ink. And it started smearing all over the place. So I re-stamped him in my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, which is my favorite ink to use with Copics. And now I'm just coloring him in with some nice simple shading. I just kind of want him to look a little round there. He's a super sweet little round bee, so that's like my main goal. So I'm using a few different yellow shades, and then I'm going to give him a sweet little rosy cheek. I like to go over the rosy cheeks with my lightest shade just to kind of blend them out a little bit so it's not like such an obvious like bam circle on his cheek. But That usually tends to work. If you use the lightest one, it'll smooth out a little bit there. And then for the black stripes on the bee, I'm going to use a few different shades of cool gray. So rather than just coloring them black, I want them to have the same dimension as the rest of his little bee body there. So I am going to use different shades of gray to create the illusion of black. You'll see I never actually even use black. Like this C9 is the darkest shade that I'm going to use. And then I will blend that out. I'm getting a pretty decent little collection of the cool grays, so I can kind of go in lots of steps as I blend down into the lightest tone in the middle. And I actually went even lighter in the middle than I thought I was going to. I went all the way down to a C3, which is a fairly light tone. But I think that you still get the idea that this little bumblebee is black, but it just provides some really awesome highlight around the little round part of his bumble belly. There's a term for you. So anyway, I wanted to share with you guys, I am going out this week. So as you're watching this video, I will actually already be out at a payment team. I work at the Oregon Department of Forestry for my day job. And so the summertime is fire season. And so it happens that a lot of people that work in my agency get called out to assist with the wildfires that happen around the state. And I typically don't go out. I'm not an actual like firefighter or anything. I work in the budget department. But what I do help with during fire season is the payment teams. So that's when you would go out and kind of take care of all the bills and stuff that happen on the wildfire. So now that we're getting, a good way into the season and approaching the end, there's some fires that have wrapped up and they need to be paid. So I am actually, as I'm speaking, getting ready to head to a payment team, and as you're watching this, I will have already been there for like 3 days, working 10, 12-hour days doing payment, paying bills and all that jazz. So I was trying really hard to get a bunch of stuff ready for you guys before I left so that it wasn't like a big blob of nothing while I was at the payment team. And which I don't know why I'm so concerned, because basically the whole summer I feel like has been a big blob of nothing when it comes to my YouTube channel. But as we approach fall here, I'm definitely getting more excited. I can feel my craft mojo starting to return as I'm getting some kind of fall themed sets, and Christmas sets are coming out, and I'm getting just way more antsy to be back in the craft room after all of the summer fun and excitement. So hopefully I won't spend too much time in the next couple months out on payment teams. You never know. You never know what kind of assignments are going to come your way. But this one for sure, and then we'll see what happens after this. But I promise to try to keep up on stuff while I'm away so that you guys don't get left in the lurch here while I'm out of town. So now that little Mr. Bumblebee is all colored, I'm going to fussy cut him out and then line the edges with my black soot marker so that he looks like he's cut out absolutely perfectly. He was a super easy image to cut out, so that was super fun. I trimmed my little flower panel down to be just ever so slightly smaller than the front of an A2 card base. I wanted just a tiny bit of a black rim to show when I put this on my black card base. And now I'm taking this little scallop frame die from Pretty Pink Posh, and this is the smallest of the 2 rectangle dies that you get in the set. And I'm going to cut this out of some Simon Says Stamp black cardstock, and I'm going to cut it out 3 times. And that's because I'm going to glue all those pieces together to create some dimension before I put this frame on my card. So you can see I have to use my little craft pick to pop that out because it's nice thick cardstock, but it cuts absolutely beautiful and gives you just the sweetest little frame. And then when I got done, I had this perfectly little tiny piece of black cardstock left, so I decided to go ahead and use it for my sentiment. So this stamp set comes with all these adorable little critters with various ailments, and then each critter has a punny, adorable little sentiment that goes with it. So the bee has just one that says "Be Well," and I thought it was just really sweet. You could totally use it for a like get well card, or I felt like you could just send a "Be Well" card, just to tell someone, hi, I'm thinking of you. I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was really nice and sweet. And it doesn't detract from the kind of background that I've created and such. So I stamped that in some Versamark ink, and then I went ahead and heat embossed that in some white embossing powder so that it really stands out. And I like the way that the white on the black goes with my black and white background. So I thought that was super fun for my sentiment. And then once that is all heat set there, I'm going to trim it out using my trimmer and make just a nice thin little strip for my sentiment. This seems to be my go-to for sentiments lately, is that I keep creating these super thin little sentiment strips and just tucking them in like inconspicuously on my card base. So now I have my base. It's cut out of the same Simon Says Stamp black cardstock. I'm not going to put any white space on the inside of this. I actually enjoy whiting in writing in white gel pen on the inside of black card bases. I think it looks really neat. So I leave them black like on purpose because I like that look, but you could absolutely put another panel of like Nina Solar white on the inside so that you had a space to write if you wanted it to be white inside there. So you can see when I put my flower panel down, that nice little thin black strip around the outside. I wanted that to be able to show. And then I'm going to take my frames, and here's where I'm going to layer them up. So I'm just going to put some of my Zig glue pen right on the top of that die cut, and I'll just put that all around the edges and then take a second die cut and just line it up. And the Zig glue pen is liquid adhesive, so it gives you just a moment to kind of squish things around and get the everything lined up perfectly. And then I will go ahead and do the exact same process and put the third frame right on top. So this is going to create a nice little bit of dimension for this frame. It's going to make it almost like a little chipboard accent piece, nice and sturdy. I think it's super cute. And I love the way that it accidentally, I totally did not plan this at all, but it frames that big cluster of flowers right there, which I think looks really great. And then I was just kind of eyeballing where I'm going to want my sentiment, and then just go ahead and trim that down so that I can put it right on the frame there. And I went ahead and put some ATG on the back, but I do decide to stick this to the frame before I stick it all down on the paper, just because I was afraid I would put that sentiment somewhere completely random and then my frame would go on and I would not like it. So I just glued it right to the frame and then put some glue on the back of the whole thing and did it all at once. So that was just one way to do it. You could totally pop that sentiment up. I wanted it to go behind the frame so you see the scallop from the frame all the way around. But there's lots of different ways you could arrange that on the front of the card. So again, that liquid adhesive allows you to kind of scooch things around until you get it placed exactly where you want it. So now that that frame is on, the card is just about done. All that I have left to do is pop my little bumblebee onto the card. So I am going to go ahead and use some foam tape to pop my bumblebee up. Well, first I decided to add a little bit of accent on all of these flowers. So this is my Gelly Roll Black Glaze gel pen. So this gel pen is different than a regular black gel pen in that it is shiny and it's almost got some like puffiness to it, like it's slightly raised when you put it on the paper. So this is the same pen that I really like to use for critters' eyeballs because it adds a lot of shine and it adds that little bit of dimension to their eyes just so that you really get like your attention drawn to their eyes. So I decided to go over these flowers have some little dots in the pattern. And I just went over every single dot with this black glaze pen. So it doesn't add anything to the pattern. I'm not adding dots. The dots were already there. I'm just adding like a shiny raised effect just for that little bit of extra detail on there. So that's all it does. It doesn't like do anything super fancy, but like in real life, you can't really tell in the photos, but in real life it adds just enough extra to make this card like, you know, just that much cooler. So it's those little things I like to look for because of course I wanted to bust my sequins out and put sequins all over this thing, but I felt like it was just, I mean, it's just nice and simple and you've got this bee is like clearly the center of attention and I wanted to kind of leave it nice and simple like that. So I clearly here could not figure out where to put my bee. I couldn't decide if I wanted him floating in the flowers or if I wanted him like right over the sentiment. And then I stuck him down, and when I lifted the card up, I realized that his little belly was like way too into that sentiment and you couldn't like read it. So I had to peel him up and scooch him over, and he finally found a home in exactly the right spot. So his little eyeball gets a little bit of that shiny glaze pen as well. And then I'm going to take my white Signo Uniball pen, I couldn't think of the name of that for a second, and put those little dots on his cheeks and then just a little bit of highlight on his wings. And you can't see the highlight on his wings tons, but when you do see it in the right light, it really does kind of add something because it just, I don't know. I love putting the highlights on the critters because I feel like it makes them just that much more whimsical. And I gotta have me some whimsy on every single card that I make. So that's part of why I like doing the highlights. So I put a little highlight on the bee, and then for final detail, and I should have done this first because the sparkly makes the white gel pen smear, but I was really careful to not make it smear. I put just a little bit of sparkle on all the black parts of the bee. just so that there was a little shimmer and shine there. And this card is finished. So I love how you can take one focal image and add a nice pop of color to a black and white background. You can see what that black glazed gel pen does for all those dots there, how it adds that little bit of extra something something. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed today's project. If you would like to join me on social media, or if you would like to do a little shopping with Mint Owl Studio, go ahead and check out the description box below. Please go ahead and leave a comment for me. I love to hear from you guys. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe for more weekly crafting videos. Thanks, guys. Bye.